Okay, Peter, so we're here to talk about the latest big thing in boxing, something that's sort of come out of nowhere and huge, and I'm almost going to call it like the ultimate lockdown fight. So we've got an 8-round exhibition being fought on the 12th of September in Los Angeles between Mike Tyson, 54 years old, 50 wins, 6 losses and 44 KOs, and Roy Jones Jr., 51 years old, 66 wins, 9 losses and 47 KOs. Now, those two names don't need any introduction. You know, they're incredible legends in the sport. But this has blindsided us a bit. I mean, I know we've seen, some clips that Tyson's been releasing recently. He's lost all his weight. There's been these 8 to 11-second clips of him looking ferocious and phenomenal on the pads, looking like the Mike of old in these short clips. And then we were talking, obviously, about Evander Holyfield. Shannon Briggs was mentioned. UFC fighters were mentioned. But nothing actually came to fruition. Although it looked like the Holyfield fight was going to happen, it just fell through and kind of evaporated. Which, to be honest, a lot of these older guys fighting has happened. I remember Nigel Benn a while ago. We got all excited when he was going to fight Chris Eubank again. Then it was going to be Psycho Beaker. The date and the venue was set, and it kind of went away. And now, obviously, we've got Tyson back. And then all of a sudden, you thought this is just a tease, if you like. And then all of a sudden, Roy Jones pops up, the date is set, the venue is set, and here we go. But there are a lot of questions to ask about this. You know, a lot of questions to answer about what they're actually going to do, if they're actually going to do it, and how we're going to interpret it, and what does it mean for boxing, and why has it just taken over the internet? I mean, the first thing we need to look at is the genesis of this fight. I think a lot of people still think of Jones as the middleweight, light heavyweight of old, and they think, well, what is he going in with, the heavyweight destroyer Tyson? But actually, the genesis of this fight goes back to 2003. 2003, interestingly enough, was the last year that Mike Tyson won a competitive fight. He just lost to Lennox Lewis in 2002. In 2003, he fought Clifford Etienne, and he won that fight, KO1. Jones, at the same time, made the jump from light heavyweight to heavyweight, totally bypassing cruiserweight, and he fought John Ruiz for the WBA heavyweight title and gave Ruiz a bit of a boxing lesson, used his skills and his speed, you know, that legendary, to outsmart Ruiz and to win that title, to annex that title, being only the second man in history after Bob Fitzsimmons in 1890 to jump from the middleweight, or to win the middleweight title, and also to win the heavyweight title. So at that point, Jones was flying as high as he ever could go, really, or ever was going to go. And there was talk then that he would have a defence against Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis. Now, Jones said openly he didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis. I mean, Jones is 5'10" and a half, you know, and Lewis was 6'5", 6'6", and Jones saw that as an untenable fight. Ruiz was a short heavyweight that he thought he could outspeed and outskill. Tyson, on the other hand, was interesting for Jones because Tyson is 5'10", a smaller heavyweight. So that fight was talked about, and actually the bookies had Jones installed at that time as a 2-1 favourite in 2003 against Tyson. So that, you know, just shows how high he was flying. Now, obviously, Tyson went on, that fight never happened. Jones decided to move down to light heavyweight, fought Antonio Tarver, and that fight was, you know, Jones won on points, but people were not happy with the outcome. So he fought Tarver again, and he got knocked out. And then, in a way, we would say that was the Jones decline, you know. But he was still fighting as recently as 2018. And to be fair to Jones, he's won 12 of his last 13 fights, but not against really top-notch opposition. Tyson, on the other hand, you know, went on the next year to fight Danny Williams and lose to Danny Williams. That was in 2004, and then he fought Kevin McBride in 2005. Looked terrible and lost again. So he lost 3 of his last 4, and in 2005 he walked away from the sport and hasn't fought again. So now we're coming into this incarnation 17 years after he last won a fight. It's only 18 months since Jones won a fight. And this just seems to have blindsided us. You know, where did it come from? And they're going to fight an exhibition on the 12th of September in Los Angeles. And this is really where the question marks start for me. What sort of exhibition is it? I mean, you know, California state athletic rules say that an exhibition has to be fought with head guards and 16-ounce gloves. But they seem to have bypassed this a little bit. And Mike was initially saying they were going to have head guards. Now they're saying they're not going to have head guards and have 12-ounce gloves. It's an 8-round exhibition, and it's not going to be scored. And everybody just keeps asking the question, who's going to win this fight? Who's going to win this fight? Well, you've got no judges. So the only way that somebody can win an exhibition is if it's a KO or if it's a, or if it's a TKO. Now, the director of the California State Athletic Commission says he does not expect them to go out and hurt each other. It should be an exhibition of boxing skills. He's also said if there's a cut, the exhibition is immediately going to be stopped. So you'd think there's a bit of a lower standard of intervention than in a general fight. But this exhibition thing is fascinating, really. People don't understand today what an exhibition is. I think that's why everybody's got so excited about it and saying the fight, the fight, the fight. It's an exhibition. Fighters would very, very often box exhibitions because between challenging fights, their fans would want to see them. Nowadays, if you want to see any fighter, you just go to YouTube, or the access to the fighters is so extensive. You don't want to see them necessarily sparring or doing an exhibition. But in those days, in Ali's time, particularly, Ali would box many exhibitions because his fans wanted to see him move around the ring, use some skills. There is actually footage of Tyson doing an exhibition in 1987 with James Quick Tillis. Now, Tyson had beaten Tillis in 86 and stopped him in 86. In 87, Tyson had just beaten Tyrell Biggs. He was 32-0, so really at the top of his game. And there was a show in Chicago, and as an added attraction on the undercard, he boxed a 4-round exhibition with Tyrell Biggs. It was controlled, it was good to watch. You could see Mike's movement, speed of hand, footwork, everything else, but they were both wearing head guards, and it was a bit like kind of glorified sparring. And that was, like I say, a very common thing, but in the modern age, it has just died out. So people don't know what an exhibition is. So an exhibition should be that. And I suppose the question mark is whether, everybody keeps saying, oh yeah, but when they get in there, they're really going to go for it. It's going to be Tyson of old against Jones of old. It's going to be an intriguing contest. I'm not so sure about that. These guys are professionals. They know exactly what they're doing. I hope they do go out and show their skills, and I hope they're not really trying to knock each other out. If they do try and do that, conventional wisdom is going to say to you that these guys are pretty much the same size. As I said earlier, Jones 5'10 and a half, seen as a smaller man, but actually slightly taller than Tyson. Tyson at 5'10, but obviously a lot thicker set, or has been throughout his life. But Jones has been campaigning for the last few years at cruiserweight, so the difference in weight will probably be negligible. But Jones was always trademark speed. Tyson also had that phenomenal speed, and they both had skills, but it was really Jones' speed was made him absolutely outstanding. The speed has declined, and that's when he started to get tagged. So, and he can't jab Tyson off because, they've got the same reach and the same height. So he can't just stick that jab out in Tyson's face, which is the popular blueprint to get round Tyson. Having said that, the flaw of Tyson is that when he was fighting, 20 years ago, people saw him as a 3-round fighter. He'd get you out of there in 3 rounds or he'd lose. So you've just got to get out of those first 3 rounds. So, that's probably, I'm sure, what Jones is going to be, because obviously having only stopped boxing in 2018, he's going to be much more endurance in that ring, be able to throw the punches and combinations for longer in the 8 rounds. Tyson's going to be dangerous in the first 3 rounds. So that would be the conventional thinking on it. The bookies are taking odds on this, and the bookies are making Tyson quite a big favourite, which again, the question hasn't been answered. And that's kind of the strange thing about this fight. When Mike signed for this fight, he broadcast it from his house, signing the paper, and he was smoking a reefer, which I know he looks great and he's got the abs back, but that makes me think you're not taking this 100% serious. Which makes me think maybe they have got a gentleman's agreement. They're going to go out and spar and look good and show their skills. But the thing is, they've got such a pull on this. When Mike first got into shape and started picking out these little videos, and was like, what the hell's going on here? Is Mike Tyson back? I think he did say, listen, I'm a fighter. That's what I do. I want to fight. I will fight anyone for $1 million. If anybody pays me $1 million, I'll fight. Now, what Mike did then was massively underestimate his value, because these clicks have been going crazy on these training videos. I don't know what purse they have negotiated now. Like I say, details are sketchy on the real sort of rules and outcomes of this fight exhibition. But Mike must be getting a lot of money, because it's going to blow Canelo out of the water. The number 1 pound, how's he going to feel? The number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world, proven credentials. He's fighting on the 12th of September. The big beasts are back. And then a guy at 54 pops up and another guy at 51. So they're going to have an exhibition. And that's what people are interested in. Imagine Wilder, Fury and AJ, all the big popular names, they would kill for the numbers that Tyson can generate at this age. And that's the amazing thing about it. So I think, we may well see that Canelo date fall by the wayside. I've heard that he said to the paymasters at DAZN that he's not taking a pay cut. He obviously got that massive contract, a couple of years ago. He's not taking a pay cut, even though there'll be no crowds. There's no opponent yet. Guys are not going to want 6 weeks. Whoever is picked, you've only got 6 weeks to really get in shape for Canelo. So, the top boys aren't really going to be interested. So I think all attention is going to focus on Jones and Tyson, and what are they going to do and how is it going to play out? And what are the bookies going to do if they're taking these bets, and if the fight goes the distance, then nobody wins. So, and who's going to decide who wins? Well, in a way, it's great that the fans are going to decide who wins, because we can have eternal arguments about that, presumably. But how the bookie's going to pay out, or I presume they're just going to cancel the bets. So still a lot of unanswered questions over this. And also in that history of exhibitions, Peter, we've got to remember, like I said, that lots of fighters used to do this. And we talked a little while ago about Jack Johnson, the great first black heavyweight champion of the world between 1908 and 1915. And Johnson famously was boxing exhibitions up until 1945, when he was 67. He boxed just a few months before his death, he boxed against Joe Genet, 3 1-minute round exhibition fight to raise funds for war bonds for the US in 1945. So, a long history of exhibitions, a great thing for fighters to do. The idea is that it's not a full-on fight where you're going to take damage, you're going to take punishment. There's something to showcase your skills, give something to your fans, entertain them, keep your name out there. And I hope that's what it's going to be, to be honest. I hope that's what this will be. I'm going to watch it. I'd love to see a few flashes of the old Tyson in the footwork and the sidestepping and the getting inside. I'd love to see a few flashes of the Roy Jones, if he can still pull that big long right-hand lead and then snap back, and of course that left hook from Captain Hook. I'd love to see it, and I'm excited about it. And I think it's great for the game. I just hope it is what it says it is. It's an exhibition. So, I'm looking forward to it. In terms of picking a winner, I just hope boxing's going to be a winner in this, and they'll both look good, and they'll go out, and they're obviously going to make a lot of money and get a lot of hits. That's all I hope for it. But if you're going to look at it from an analytical perspective, it's Tyson early or Jones late.
Do you think that there's a chance here that Mike Tyson who's an expert at generating publicity and PR and well understands how to get his name totally out there, when he bit Lennox Lewis on the leg at the press conference, that was not a mistake at all. So do you think there's a chance that he's walking into this thinking, you know what, I'll wait till, the middle of the fight, towards the end of it, and then do something really extraordinary, just to sort of relaunch myself as the baddest man on the planet? Do you think there's a chance?
There's a chance, because there's always a chance with Tyson. And this was why we used to watch Tyson so compulsively. Not only the amazing skills and the excitement of the early career, but in the later career, even when he was fading, you never quite knew what was going to happen. Was he going to try like Franz Botha? Was he going to try and break his arm? Was he going to bite his ear like Evander Holyfield? Was he going to do something crazy? It just seemed like such an unpredictable loose cannon. I think this is a different Mike. Like Mad Mike of a few years ago, when you thought maybe this fella ain't going to make old bones, it doesn't look good. He's mellowed a lot. He's a lot wiser. It seems a lot cleverer. He's done a lot of things since he walked out of that ring and walked away from boxing in 2005, including that incredible show, Undisputed Truth, the biography. This is Mike Tyson's second act in American life. Mad Mike is gone. Maybe he still pops up now and again. He can get quite emotional, but in general, I think he's quite a well together person. He's obviously had a lot of therapy. He seems to have stabilised his life. So I think this incarnation of Mike Tyson is not going to do those crazy things, but that will still keep us watching.